Hello everyone. So for this presentation, we will talk about kernel bug in Ubuntu in the shiftfs file system component, and we will see how to exploit it. So the agenda for this talk, first I will introduce the context of this work, then we will see a methodology part about how to review the kernel source code in order to find bugs, and we will describe the bug found in this step, and then we will see how to exploit it. So I am Jean-Baptiste Caillroux. I work at Synactive as a security researcher in the reverse engineering team, and I will not present Synactive again because it's the third Synactive talk of the day. I suppose you know now. So at the beginning of 2022, I started to search for vulnerability in the Ubuntu kernel in order to participate to Pwn2Own Vancouver in May. And to have a valid entry for the contest, you need a bug and an exploit, kernel bug, I mean, to gain root using this bug, this vulnerability. My motivations were first learn more about Linux kernel internals, but also learn more about kernel exploitation tricks. And of course, there is an interesting bounty for this target. So let's see. First part, the code review part. The first thing we can wonder is where to start, because the kernel source code is quite huge. So we need a strategy to do the code source review. Fortunately for me, my colleague Vincent Dehors, who presented the Tesla talk this morning, already succeeded to find and exploit a vulnerability in the Ubuntu kernel the previous year of my work. So he had written a great article on the Synactive blog post, and he described the methodology and how we exploited the bug. So it was my starting point, entry point for this research. So to sum up it, if you try to find the vulnerability in the kernel, you should focus on uncommon surface, because probably this surface is less audited than the rest of the code. And a good point to us is that by default on Ubuntu, unprivileged users are allowed to create namespace. And namespace is not always available on a distribution, so probably it's a surface less audited than the rest. So you can check on your system if you have namespace using this command. So what is a namespace? Quickly, a namespace is a kernel feature that provides some process isolation. So the idea is to create a set of resources which is separated from the rest of the system. So, for example, if you use Docker, in fact, internally, it will be based on the Linux namespace. So you have several types of namespace. You have mount, which is used to isolate a file system mount point. So on this talk, we will just focus on this kind of namespace, but you have other one like process ID, network, APC, and others. Okay, so how to identify the surface accessible with namespace and mount. In fact, in the kernel source code, file system are implemented, and you have some C structures with some flags, and you have this specific flag SF user NS mount that tells that this file system can be mounted by unprivileged user using namespace. So you just need to grep it in the kernel source code, and you will get all surfaces available. So you have the list just there. And we can just notice that shiftfs there is specific to Ubuntu, and it is not available in the upstream kernel source code. Yes, just a quick overview of what is a virtual file system. So, in fact, virtual file system is a tree with a root and some folders and files. For example, on the left you have ext4 file system with some folders, and you can have on folders moon points. That means they are linked to another kind of file system. So on the example, you have the proc folder, which is linked to procfs folder. And which is interesting is that you have specific operations to process files and directory that are specific to the file system. For example, if you read an ext files, you will have different behaviors than if you read a procfs file. Okay, so now we know what to review, what components review in the kernel source code. Now we can wonder what is the attack surface. So there are two kinds of attack surface for the file system. The first is all file manipulations. So when you try to create, open, read a file in the file system, because you will have some specific code to process it. You can have also race conditions. For example, if you have two processes that try to create a same file name in the same directory. So this is a kind of situation the file system should manage. And you have all logical bugs, for example, missing permission checked on file access or directory. For the second kind of attack surface, it's all mounting operations. So you have some syscall related to that, like mount, fsopen, fspic, fsconfig. Because when you set up a file system, you can provide some options to it, and options are specific to the file system, so it is an attack surface too. Okay, so before read the code, it's better to read the doc. And the first thing I did is to read the kernel documentation about file system, because it will give you all the C structures and all the IPA that should be used to implement a file system. So it's better to do that before reading the kernel source code, because it's quite complicated. Then it's good to read and study some past CVE that affects that affects some file system, because you can see what kind of bugs and what kind of vulnerability you can find on this specific surface, and keep in mind during the code review part step. And last thing is to read the blog post about kernel exploitation, because it will give you some ideas on how to turn a bug into useful thing to write an exploit. Okay, so let's go for the code review. So I take all accessible file system using namespace, and I started to audit one by one. And at the beginning, I skipped shiftfs because my colleague already found things in it, so I believe there is no more bug. And after 3 weeks, I had still nothing. Or it was not in full time, but still nothing. But I learned a lot about how a file system works. And then I started to look into the shiftfs file system, and bingo, there was a bug. Cool. Before explaining the bug, just let's see what is shiftfs concretely. So shiftfs is a small file system. In fact, it's just a pass-through used to change the user Unix permission during file access or modifications. So the idea is when you set up a shiftfs file system, you set up also, you give an option the underlying file system. And each time you will access the file system, the shiftfs file system, in fact, internally, it will do the action on the underlying file system and shift the Unix permission. Okay, so some C code of the kernel. This is a vulnerable function, which is a shiftfs create object. So in fact, it's like a helper function used to create objects in a directory. So objects could be a file, a folder, a link. And this function will retrieve the operation function of the underlying underlying file system. For example, if you want to create a folder, it will retrieve the mkdir function pointer to do the operation. But the point is that some file system some file system may not implement one of these operation, and in this case, we have a null pointer there. And just after, if this pointer is null, we have a goto, and we execute this function, which is inode unlock, that will unlock the directory. But in this situation, we have an unlock operation without a previous lock. So it doesn't look like a standard behavior. So it is a bug. So how can we trigger the bug? So we need to find a file system which is available in namespace that does not implement one of these operations. And we have a good candidate, which is MQ. So you have the MQ extracts there, and we can see we can just create and remove file into a MQ file system. So there is no mkdir operation, for instance. So we can use it to trigger the bug. So the commands are quite simple to reach the vulnerable code. So first we just set up the namespace with unshare. Then we create two directory, D1 and D2. We set up MQ on D1, and then we set up shiftfs on D2, and the underlying file system will be D1. And in this situation, all operation we will do in the D2 folder will be, in fact, pass through the D1 folder, which is, in fact, the MQ file system. So then we call mkdir to create a directory, but in fact, in the MQ file system, the mkdir does not exist, so we reach the bug. And when we do that again, the last command blocked, and after several seconds, we get this kind of kernel trace. So we can see this process was blocked more than 120 seconds. And we can now test in the call trace. We have some function which is related to semaphore manipulation, and often locking mechanisms are based on semaphore. So it makes sense regarding the kind of bug we found in the source code. Okay, so now we have a bug, and how to exploit it. Okay, the objective of kernel exploitation, and I mean kernel LPE, local privilege escalation, is to change our process UID to 0, which is the root user, to get more privilege on the system. So we need to keep in mind, we don't need to have kernel code execution. We just need to have some primitives to be able to read and write the kernel memory. We also need a kernel leak to bypass the KSLR, because the kernel memory is not located at the same address at each boot. So we need a leak to get this information. And then we also need some leaks related to our data to be able to know what to patch, at which address we need to patch our process information to change the UID to 0. Okay, now we can wonder what are the side effects of the bug. So keep in mind we have a primitive that allow to unlock a directory without a previous lock. So we can wonder, what does it protect? What this lock protects, and what could happen wrong if this lock does not exist? Okay, so in the normal usage, when a process wants to modify a directory, it takes the lock to create a file, folder, etc. And this prevents against race condition on concurrent access. For example, if two processes want to create the same file name in the same directory, so this should not be possible using this lock. So let's see an animation of a situation. So we have two processes, process A and process B, and process A want to remove a file. We can notice on the diagram, we have interesting information here, is the icon value, which is the usage counts of the related to the file 1. And in fact, when this value reaches 0, the kernel will free the resources because there are no more users. Okay, let's go. Process A start to remove the file. So on Linux, when you remove a file, in fact, you call the syscall unlink. So unlink is called. The first thing it does, it just call inode lock to lock the directory lock. So now the lock is read. At the same time, process B want to open the file 1. So it will try to get the lock of the directory, but it will wait because it's not available at this moment. Then process A continues the removing. So it will remove the link between directory and file 1 and also decrement the icount value. So at this step, we can notice there is no more link between directory and file 1, and the counter has been decreased. Okay. So now process A finished the unlink operation. So it unlocks the lock. The lock is now green. And because the lock is green, it can wake up the process B, and process B will resume the open operation. Process B wants to open file 1, but file 1 does not exist because there is no more the link between directory and file 1. Okay. So this is the normal operation. So if we keep in mind what is our bug, we can unlock a directory. So that means we can have two processes that perform a modification or access on the directory at the same time, and with a lock which is not more lock. Okay, so take again the previous animation at this state where B was waiting for the lock. The lock was taken by process A, and B was waiting for it. So we can imagine we have another process C, that trigger the bug, so calling mkdir inside the directory. This will unlock the lock. The lock is now green. The process B will resume, and now we are in a situation where both process A and process B are do things into directory. Okay, so how can we take advantage of this bug? So if you remember, during a unlink operation, the icon value is decremented. So that means we can have a situation where we have two simultaneous unlinks operation. That means the icon value can be decremented twice. So we can have a situation where this counter reaches 0 while the system is still using the resource. And because when this value reaches 0, the kernel will freeze the resource, so we will have a use after free. Okay, so this is the exploitation ID. Quite simple. We have two processes, A and B, that are synchronized to run unlink at the same time. And then we will call with process C mkdir to unblock the waiting process. So it will look simple in theory, but in practice it's more like that. In fact, the unlink operation is very short. So that means the race windows is narrow. And other issue is it's very difficult to synchronize process C to make the mkdir command happen at the perfect time inside the unlink operation. So how to work on this kind of race conditions? So this slide is more tips and methodology. It's good to work with a minimal setup. For example, a QEMU with a RAM disk, and you take the same kernel configuration without the useless module. The idea is to be able to build and do tests very quickly in less than a minute to do tests and see what happens. When you work with race condition, it could be interesting to add a comfortable sleep at the first time to increase manually the race windows to see what happens when the race condition is reached and is won. Because the longer it takes, the easier it is to win the race. Because it's a timing issue, it's good to know the time it takes. So you can add some instruction, some functions to make time measuring. So on x86, you can use RDTCS that returns the CPU cycle. So you can diff it to get the time of your windows. And last point, you can try to assign a process to a specific CPU and play with task priority in order to improve, to increase the race windows and improve your success rate. You have some very interesting documentation available on the internet. One is a blog post by Jan Horn on racing against the clock, and another academic paper, X-Race. And in the both publications, the idea is to use interruptions for the kernel in order to stop the operation you have the race condition, the race window, to increase its time. So you will send a lot of interruptions, so the kernel will stop doing the things, process the interruption, and resume. So this will increase the time of the race window. So after several tests, I observed that using iNotify feature increase the race window. So on the kernel, iNotify is a feature that allows a process to register for some change in the file system. For example, to be notified if a file is removed from a folder. So when we register this kind of iNotify, we can observe that the unlink operation is longer, so it's better to win the race. So what's the idea for the exploitation? Is that prior the race, we will use a process to register an iNotify to monitor deletion on the folder we work with. And with that, we have a success rate about 1 win for 100 attempts. So it only takes a few seconds, and it demonstrates it is possible to win the race and continue the next exploitation steps. Here you have diagrams of all tests I did. It was 10,000 tests in each case, so with and without iNotify. So, and the more it's on the right, the better it is. And vertically, it's the number of tests. And we can see clearly that orange is with iNotify. We have more chance that the unlink takes time than in the other case. Okay, so small animation to understand how to exploit this race condition. So we have 3 processes, A, B, and C. At the beginning, file 1 has icon equal 1. First, we will open file 1, we will see why later. So we get an FD, and during the open, the usage counter is incremented, so now the value is 2. And we do that again, FD2. Now icon equals 3. Then we use process C to register iNotify to be notified on deletion. And at this step, process C is waiting for events. So now we are ready to try to win the race. So we will synchronize process A and process B to call unlink at the same time. Process A will take the lock because it was the first, for example, and process B will be waiting for the lock. Then process A continues the removing, and because there is a iNotify, it will send an event ID late to process C, and this will wake up process C. And quickly after the wake up, process C will call mkdir, create mkdir directory foo that will trigger the bug, and the bug is ulock primitive. So now the lock is green, and because the lock is green, the process B will be resume. And now we are in a situation where we have 2 unlinked operations at the same time, and we have still the link between the directory and the file. So that means the icon value will be decremented twice. So here we have value 3, and just after, value 1. And then we are no more link. Okay, so now what? Now it's quite good for us. because process A still have some file descriptor opens related to the file1 resources. And because we have this file descriptor, we can choose when the file1 kernel resources will be deleted. We can do that just by closing one of the file descriptor. For example, if we close fd, the icon value will be decremented and reach 0. And when it reaches 0, the kernel will freeze the resource. Okay, now the memory is free. And then later in the program, we can do operation on file fd2. For example, read fd2. And internally in the kernel will fetch some value in the previously freed memory. So we are in situation, we have a use after free. Okay, so now we are in a classical use after free situation. So there is no time to go further details in this presentation because there are a lot of things to tell. But I will give you all the steps you need to be root. So first, win the race. So this is the state of my current exploit. Win the race to have a use after free, so it's okay. Then you want to be able to reuse this memory with arbitrary data. The idea is to craft internal kernel structure with custom value, and with that you can use it to be able to create kernel read and write primitives, and you can also use that to leak the kernel pointer. And at this step, you have all needed steps to patch your credential and get root. Okay. So here a screenshot of my exploit. So at the beginning, we can see the two unlink operation return 0. That means the two threads succeed to unlink the file. So that means the race was won. After I just display some attributes information related to the file descriptor. So this is specific to MQ file system. So we have normal value. Then we free the inode using the clause on one of the FD. Then we produce some allocation in the kernel with control data, and we are able to reuse the internal memory object with control value. Okay. So okay. At the moment, I wanted to test it on up-to-date Ubuntu versions, and when I tested it, it doesn't work as expected at all. In fact, the behavior I had is if the exploit loses the race, the CPU blocked. The CPU was stuck. So that means we have only one try by CPU. So why this behavior? Because during all my exploitation work, I was focused on the shiftfs kernel source code to see if there is still my vulnerability, and the source code did not change at all. And in fact, there is a patch in the kernel, in the locking system, internal system. That means that before this commit, I have all intent I want, and after this commit, I have just one try by CPU. So at this step, I gave up because I believe winning a race condition using just one attempt by CPU is impossible. So I gave up. So I reported the bug to Ubuntu, and the patch is quite simple. They just move the lock operation to always have unlock, as there is no more path. We can just unlock the directory. So it's good. And while I was preparing the site for Greac, I had an idea. Remember, the tricks we use is to register a process with iNotify to increase the Windows rate. And I wonder why I just did that with one process, because we can do that with several processes. And in fact, we can register up to 128 processes with iNotify to be notified on deletions. And in fact, when I did the test, I observed that this increased a lot the success rate of the race condition. I don't know exactly the statistic, but it was more than 50% to win the race. So Now that means we can win this race condition even with a kernel with a patch on the locking system. So it was updated with a patch, and it works on my VM, Ubuntu VM. So it's cool. So to conclude this talk, it was very interesting to work on this kind of bug because I learned a lot on Linux internals and particularly file system internals. Namespace are a very interesting surface for an attacker because you have access to less audited code. But Ubuntu plans to restrict them for the latest version of Ubuntu by using AppArmor, so it will not be possible to win point-to-one using namespace maybe in the future. And the last point is do not give up too fast because if you work on a problem and you think it's impossible, maybe it's good to take a step back because there is maybe a solution you don't see at the moment. So that's all for me. Thank you for attention. If you have questions, maybe now or later in the social event, I will be available.
Do we have any question? No? Oh, yes.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. It was very interesting. Did you try to exploit the race with like logical things like files, permissions, and so to avoid using use after free or complicating memory stuff?
You mean using this bug, just transform it by using logical...
to change the file permission.
In fact, it did not work because file permission was contained in a structure which was not in use after free, and only the structure related to the file MQ file system was free.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jean-Baptiste.
Thank you very much.